Hey,
Fire shut up
everybody.
on my bones.
We're excited to be here tonight. We're going to give people a chance to come on with us and join us tonight as we get into a discussion about where we are and where we go. So, my brothers, we're going to give folks a chance to jump on. I know there's some people out there that were inviting people and talking about it. So, hopefully, we have a good quorum of brothers tonight. If you all can share it, it's going to be a good conversation. I'm excited to be here with my brothers, and I'll go with them just around the table and have them introduce themselves and just kind of give a, a statement to this moment. I know we're all feeling emotions, some positive, some negative, some in between, regarding what's going on in our world right now. Newsflash: the verdict is out, and guilty on all three charges. Um, Tonight, that's what we're going to be discussing. Where are we? Is that enough? Does that move us forward? Is there more to go? And so I'm going to start with the squares as I see them. We're going to go, well, we'll go different now. The camera went off, but we'll do, oh, there he is, Ender. Then we're going to go to Sydney Fry. Then we'll do Dr. Dwight Radcliffe. Just introduce yourself, give an opening statement, and then we're going to get into this discussion and just see where we land on where we are right now as a community and as a nation.
Yeah. So thank you, Pastor Ryan, and deference to my brothers here. I guess I'll start. If I had a statement, I talked to Pastor Ryan a little earlier today, and I told him that I was kind of in a valley of indecision between a sigh of relief, a deep breath, and on the other side, um, the refrain from the Negro National Anthem, "Let us march on until victory is won," and knowing that one verdict against one officer that had to be on tape for almost 10 minutes cannot equal a wholesale verdict of justice for the entirety of America.
Sydney, we'll get to discussion a little bit. Sydney, talk to us.
Well, what's up, everybody? So, Sydney Fry, I'm joining you by way of the state of Minnesota, so the epicenter of kind of everything that's been popping off here. Obviously, I got personally mixed emotions. I can resonate with what my brother was alluding to. Part of me, I mean, I'm really happy for the Floyd Flam family. For them to be able to feel like they received some justice in respect to their brother. But I do feel like for our larger family, as people of color, that I'm hoping that this is not just something that we that basically boils down to being pacified by, as it relates to just this kind of one point in time that they made an example, that they otherized this particular individual and basically, made him the scapegoat, when it's largely a bigger issue than just this one person. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Got it. Dr. Radcliffe.
Introduce myself. I am Deshaun's husband. I am Shawnee and Nico's daddy.
There it is.
That's that's who I am. I pastor the Message Center, and I am assistant professor and academic dean over at Fuller Theological Seminary. So that's me, man. That's me. What I think we'll get into. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you bring up a great point, because let's take away what we do for a living. Let's take all that away. I think all of us on here are husbands and fathers. We're somebody's son. And so,
Yeah.
are we happy that the verdict came the way it did? Absolutely. Are we happy that George Floyd had to be murdered for it to happen? Absolutely not. But let's get into this. I mean, as a father, as a husband, today, Micaiah, she's around the same age as me and you's daughter, Dwight. She's 16. I have a 17-year-old. I think your youngest maybe 18 or so. But the reality is, she's murdered in the street, 4 shots, when the story is that she's the one that called for help, and she had a knife trying to protect herself from the assault that was coming to her. How are we feeling as husbands and fathers? Whoever wants to throw out. How are we feeling, husbands and fathers?
You know, so
Emote, my brothers, emote.
one of my favorite poems is if, and one of the lines that always rings true is, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. My struggle as a black man in America doesn't end because we got justice for Brother George. My struggle in America didn't end when we got the Emancipation Proclamation, or when Reconstruction started, or with the Voting Rights Act, or with none of these things are an ending point in the ongoing, very realizing the spiritual realm, excuse me, the physical realm, but the ongoing spiritual battle against white supremacy. It's a demon,
Yeah.
and demons do not die easily. And that ancient spirit that has hovered over, that transferred to this continent, is pervasive, and it is not one of those things that goes out with a single blow. We have to be resilient. But as a daddy today, man, I was trying to figure out how I was going to explain to my kids, because we always watch the news, why we weren't watching the news today. And this is just, we're hearing the George Floyd verdict. And then I go from how explaining them how we're not going to watch the news to, like, shucks, let's talk about this victory instead of having to tell them about this other thing that's happening, right? My boys are 9 and 6. I probably don't do a good job of tempering how much they absorb of some of this stuff. But as a daddy, man, I'm still at the place I was this morning. Got to get up tomorrow, got to protect my family, got to make it better for them and their children.
You know what's interesting, and you know, having said, I'm gonna be honest. We're being transparent tonight, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm actually out of the house. I had to leave the house I didn't have to, but I left the house to come do this, and I seriously considered, do I need to take protection with me or not? You know, and it's those kind of thoughts that other folk don't have to really have as they walk out into the streets. And you talking about literally going across the street from where I live, I'm asking myself, do I need protection? And me and my wife had to have a 30-second discussion to think, what did I need to or not? It's not here. But either way, the reality is that that's a thought that came up, and it's about protecting kids, protecting myself, protecting those that, you know, God's put me over. And the fact that we had to watch a 9.5-minute murder on camera, and then it had to be discussed in a court of law to see what did we see what we really saw, and then we had to wait for a verdict for us to feel partially vindicated, should let us know that the work certainly isn't done. And this is definitely a step, but we still are in a huge challenge of being in position to where someone can see a scene like that, and without question, as humanity is on the same page. This is wrong and it needs to be vindicated. And the fact that that's not the case, and the fact that while the trial is going on, you have people getting murdered. When the verdict is coming out, the same things are happening. Is, to me as a father, I'll tell you, with all of the faith I have in God, there's still a great element of fear that comes when me and my children have to exist in this world where these things can happen to those that have been on the wrong side of the law, on the right side of the law, in between the law. Didn't matter where they were, and these challenges still came. But I want to hear from you, brothers, these fathers that we have on here, these husbands. Talk to us about where you are as a father, as a husband. Dwight. Sorry, Deshaun's husband.
Yeah, Deshaun's husband, Shawnee Nico's daddy.
Right.
Man, I think Ender said it, but I'm in the same spot. I'm still nervous. I'm still scared. I'm still worried about my kids, and my girls are, you know, half growns, as we call them, you know, 18 and 21. But the reality of the fact is, and I was trying to communicate this to a couple of non-Black colleagues the other day, is that the difference between us and maybe our white sisters and brothers is that we don't get luxury of ever not being who we are. That when I walk in the door, there are assumptions made about me immediately based on my melanin, my phenotypes, the things about me, my skin tone, my height or lack of height, my weight or lack of weight. There's all these decisions. I'm sized up when I walk in the room immediately, and people have to determine whether or not I'm a threat when I
Yeah.
walk in the room. And so my girls, my black daughters, you know, as a father, they walk through this world as black women, and what that means to be sexualized and objectified, you know, just because. So how do I feel, man? I'm still hurting.
Yeah.
I'm still hurting. I'm still nervous. I'm still anxious. If I tell the truth about it, Dr. Joy DeGruy Wright wrote a book called uh, Post-Traumatic Stress Slave Disorder, and we
Mm.
just live in a constant state of trauma and stress, and it's no kid is taking years off of our lives because we're constantly in a fight or flight mode. We don't unplug
Yeah.
from that. So that's how I feel. Yeah.
You know, you bring that up in Sydney. You've talked about that before about the fight, flight, or freeze. You know, being in that moment where when you hit such a situation like George Floyd is in, or like the black community is in, you know, as a father and a husband with that idea of fight, flight, or freeze, how have you reacted to the things that are going on? Because I mean, right now we're talking about in your city. Dante was in your city. George Floyd was in your city, right? The verdict happened in your city.
Yeah.
You were one decision away from uproar tonight, from riots tonight. You know, right there in your city, from law enforcement going overboard because of protest. So you know, fight, flight, or freeze. You know, how are you preparing your family and your children for what may have happened, and still what could happen?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think for me, it's just been, you know, everybody's been on edge, and
Yeah.
I mean, I have some, I take some sense of peace in the fact that we're not, you know, I'm a little bit out, you know, it's a little drive to be at the epicenter. I'm not at 38th in Chicago, at George Floyd Square, so not at the epicenter, on the outskirts, but you could still feel the tension. I mean, I saw so many people that just were talking about how their stomach was in knots, and if you know anything about, you know, as we were talking about trauma, that's actually a physiological manifestation of trauma, because they say that your stomach is the second brain, right? And so basically, like when people have nerves and they feel like queasy in their stomach, that's basically reflecting kind of what's going on in their head,
Hmm.
and you could feel that. I mean, I think a lot of people were,
Yeah.
and a lot of people still are not for sure exactly what's going to happen. We still got Dante Wright to deal with. And in August, I believe the other three officers, they're going to be on trial. So that's still coming up. So there's still a lot of stuff that people are kind of
Sentencing.
sentencing.
And I was,
Exactly.
yeah, I was about to get to that because the reality is that that's, you know, we got the verdict. You really show if you're rolling with me in how you handle my problem, right? So it's one thing to say, I agree with you, you have a problem. So it's one thing to say, yes, we all agree he's guilty, but now what are you going to do about it? And that sentencing is a huge aspect, is another piece. Let me hear from you. And Dwight, you mentioned it. So you know, we were in LA in '92, right? Me and you, we were here. You know,
Sir,
we were in these
sir.
streets. We were driving
The
by
Foot Locker,
Fedco,
the
right?
Foot Locker on Manchester and Western.
Listen, Fedco. I remember my
Yes,
mom
sir.
called Palms Middle School, and we're talking about the LA riots, Palms Middle School, and she called and they got me on the phone with her. She said they're looting Fedco. I'm coming to get you. And you know, that was right on what's now Obama and La Cienega. But the reality is we saw our neighbor, our community just come down, right? What do we need to do between now and sentencing, now and August, as a community to ensure that we move this moment forward?
We don't stop, man. I mean, I hate to say it, but we don't stop.
Yeah.
You know, I was watching a lot of the news reports today, and God bless them. And I say that to stop from saying something else. God bless them. But you know, they kept saying the difference is we got it on tape. I'm like, man, get out of here with that. We had
Yeah.
Rodney King on tape, and they told us,
Yeah.
and somebody went out there with a big old camcorder. Come on, back. This wasn't no
Yeah. You
cell
talking
phone.
about back in the day, you up
Somebody
here.
watched that with a camcorder.
Yeah.
And they told us that he didn't get his behind beat. They told us.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that this is the first time we had it on tape. We had Tamir Rice on tape. Don't tell me
Yeah.
that this is the first time that we had it on tape. I think, you know, what do? We still stand by. We thank God. Don't get me wrong. We thank God for these three convictions, for these three verdicts. We thank God for that. We do. But this is my analogy. As a Black man, and I'm not talking, I can't speak for my sisters. I can't speak for any other group. I'm talking my personal experience as a Black man. I live in a state where I feel like I'm drowning in an ocean of injustice. Stay with
Mm.
me. An ocean of injustice. These three verdicts were pieces of driftwood that came by and allowed me, for at least the moment, to stop paddling for the moment. But I know in my head, these pieces will not carry me very far, and they won't last very long. So I'm still in the middle of an ocean of injustice. So we'll take the three verdicts. We'll take them because we know how hard it is to convict white officers of brutalizing Black bodies. We'll take it. But that's not a pacifier. And without adequate sentencing, we're still sending the same message. So what do we do in the meantime? We pray, we push, we protest, we verbalize, we vocalize. We don't allow the pressure. We don't let up because it's not over. And you know, the justice thing overall is definitely a marathon. It's a long race. I'm not trying to get ahead of us in the conversation, but
Yeah.
we do our work. We do work.
Yeah, and I love that. Let me pause. I think most of our, I don't know if all of our wives, but I know our wives are on here, so shout out to them. Mom is on here. We got Bishop Prince Bryant Sr. from our General Board of the Church of God in Christ is on here. So just God bless all of you. We see some family members. Glad you guys joined us tonight. Please share and like this conversation. Politically speaking, you know, Dwight makes a great point. We don't stop. We don't stop. I think the challenge that we run into sometimes, and I'm sorry, brothers, forgive me if this is wrong. I'm a man of God. I don't believe in violence. But I think when you've been oppressed for so long, I'm not going to listen to my oppressor on how to stop him. And I think when you have those that are oppressed that fight the system the best way they know how, which may not always be seen as positive by the oppressor can't then come in and say, no, you're fighting against the oppression wrong. You have to do it this way to make me feel comfortable. But again, you know, we have some people out there that they protest and they fight simply because they're angry. They don't know what to do. So it comes out how it comes out. Others are opportunists. We know that. But talk to us politically, Ender. How do we navigate these waters to ensure that our anger, our frustration, our fear, even our joy in this moment is done in a way that brings us forward and doesn't make it worse? Now, again, I've never seen a revolt that is pretty. I've never seen it. I haven't read it in the history books. I haven't seen where an oppressor said the way that they revolted against us made us feel very positive about them. I've never seen that. So I don't think, I think that's a moot point to try and suggest that the way that we come after the oppressor is going to make them feel comfortable. But politically speaking, in America, what is the best course of action as we move forward? And we all know that you're connected with faith in action. So give us some bullet points that people can walk away with and say, these are kind of things we need to do if we're going to be this in this political world, and to fight against oppression and fight for what we're trying to get.
All right. So the Honorable Hajj Al-Malik Al-Shabazz, Malcolm X, said that America has the opportunity to have the first bloodless revolution, and he begged America to take the opportunity to have a bloodless revolution. And I think many of us, people of faith, definitely would love a bloodless revolution. But we've already seen the blood of Tamir Rice, of Breonna Taylor, of George Floyd, of Emmett Till, of Trayvon Martin. And the list goes on and on. And even of Malcolm X, we've seen the blood of all of these persons. So we, as much as they talk about peace, and I would, this was burning in my spirit earlier, that it's challenging to really talk about peace, because what you're saying is be quiet about my pain, not addressing my pain. And I don't believe that's peace. That's not actual peace if all I do is shut up about being killed, right? So how do we address it? I think, first of all, shout out to Black women. So I appreciate you. Shout out our wives and Mom Sims and all these amazing women who are on. But Auntie Maxine let us know. She said this is the time where we have to keep up the fight and we have to keep the pressure. And she said even today that it's, yes, we have a verdict, but we do not yet have sentencing, and we do not have the changes that we need across the board. We don't have city councils that have the budgets for most of these police departments. We do not have infrastructure in most states to make sure that we have an outside prosecutor to handle these things. We do not have counties and all these people. We still don't have the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act passed through the Senate of our government. We still have Tim Scott, mute me if I get too raw, bug dancing for Lindsey Graham to make it look good, like he's putting on a good show about trying to bring justice and policing, but it's just a facade. Let's be real about it. We don't have those pieces that we need to bring systemic change. I appreciate Uncle Joe and my soror Kamala for saying, hey, we need to do this and we need to lead from the top. But we need executive orders. We need to flood everybody's phones. We need to make sure. What happens is, as a former staffer for a member of Congress, what happens is I can go, when I go to my boss and we're having meetings and we're talking about these changes that we want to see. We want you to put out a statement on this. We want you to speak up on this. If I can say that, I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry, sir, we've gotten 500 calls today. We need to figure out what we're doing. That is something that will motivate many of these elected officials. There's a way that we can organize. There's a way that we can strategize while we're still doing the other things. I don't think it's a one size fit all thing. We need people on the ground. We need people getting arrested. We need people on the front lines doing that. But we need people who have Juris Doctorates sitting down to write draft legislation. We need people who are political savants that are there and figuring out behind the scenes how we're going to bring this thing to pass. We need people who own businesses that can write checks to get these people out of jail when they're arrested for this silly stuff that happens when they're just using or exercising their First Amendment. We need the whole of the body. And my God, we need the church. We need the church. And my brothers, my sisters, if your favorite white preacher ain't said nothing today, unfollow them and do not engage with them anymore. No more.
Listen.
I'm sorry.
Listen, you telling the truth. Hey, so Dwight, we were kind of hitting on that before. I gotta hear your thoughts now. You say you're gonna keep your thoughts to yourself. I'm calling you out. We were talking about the churches.
I don't know why Pastor Ryan invites me on here to get out of the brotherhood and off of every social media platform that exists. So, all right, here we go. The church in America is very much akin to Joshua 24. I believe it's Joshua 24, 23 or 24, where Joshua is requiring the people to say, hey, choose today whom you're going to serve. And the people are declaring, oh, we'll serve God. We never leave God. We love God. We never leave God. But he's saying, then get rid of your idols. And they say, oh yeah, but we love God. We'll never leave God. And the whole time they still have these idols. And so we have to ask ourselves, when we talk about the church in America broadly, we could talk about evangelicalism specifically. We could talk about political types of worship, where nationalism, where the church in America has become not the church in America, has become the American church, where we are Americans first, and then we are body of Christ. And the problem is that the church is basically professing allegiance to God while at the same time holding on to their idols. And shout out to my queen for setting the stage for this analogy. If you are married to somebody and you are sleeping with somebody else, you are cheating on them with somebody else, listen, the side piece is not being violated by your marriage. I'm preaching.
Talk to us, Reverend. Come on.
For myself.
Come on.
The side piece signs up knowing that you are in a marriage. The only person who gets offended, the only person who has contract and covenant broken is the spouse, because you made a covenant with the spouse. So as long as the American church holds on to idols of nationalism, of white supremacy, holds on to idols of homophobia, let me call it a whole roll. As long as we hold on to idols of patriarchy,
yeah,
and white normativity and male and ableism,
xenophobia, all of it.
We hold on to these. As long as we hold on to these idols, then the idols are not the offended party. God is. And so God, who the church proclaims to be married to and proclaims we'd never leave, we actually already have left. And so really what we've done when you are married and have a side piece, what you have actually declared is you have nullified your marriage and proclaimed your allegiance to your side piece. Even if you say from your mouth, I'll never leave you, you've already broken the covenant. So the married person who cheats on their spouse, that's the analogy that the American church is. We're proclaiming allegiance to God, but we've broken that allegiance to serve at the idols of economics and the idols of success and the idols of call the roll. So the American church, man, I'm just keeping a buck. The American church just needs to show enough repent. And I don't mean the nice cute stuff that we do in church nowadays. I mean old-fashioned repent, roll on the floor, snot and bubble, like for real actions, like turn from, to repent, to turn from and go a different direction. And if that doesn't happen, man, we're going to see continued judgment upon the church and upon the nation. It is what it is.
Let me ask you all this, and man, that was profound. Tanisha said, "Walk heavy." Listen, that was profound. Let me ask you all this. If the American church does not have this form of, or let me ask it this way, is that repentance that you're saying the American church needs to move forward in, is that part of the catalyst that's going to shift the Black experience in America? If the American church has that formalized, pure, from the heart repentance and change, how will that cause the Black experience to change in America?
I'm really scared to say that it's going to cause a lot of us to run to them, to run and leave so many institutions that are so serious to us, because so many of us in times of ease, in times of comfort, we leave Black institutions. And if there be a prophet of this nation, it was Martin King. If there be a prophetic institution, it is the Black church. If there be any sort of sustained witness, even in times of enslavement, it was Black folk who, that's another story, but who had Jesus on the continent. Don't let them lie to you. Jesus was on the continent of Africa before he was in Europe. But if there be real witness, it's consistently been with us. But so many of us, at the first chance we get, because we have been so brainwashed to believe if it's white, it's right. It's an old icon here in Vegas who always said, we really believe that the white man's ice is colder than ours. And so many of us, the first chance we get to taste their ice, we run there. But I do believe that with that, if it happens in a true way, right, it will really break down barriers. It will really open up for true reconciliation. And I think it was KDH said it tonight, that will allow America to be what it should. Dr. Ratcliffe, you messing with me because I'm preaching Sunday, and what the sermon is about. If there's conviction but no change, if there's conviction but no verdict. If there's conviction, like the rich young ruler, like, hey, I feel what you're saying, but you know what I got? And the challenge that we have is, I've been heckled on Facebook today by police officers saying, hey, no, man, that was just one bad apple. And this isn't about all of us. No, man, if you cannot look in the mirror and see how policing, because there's somebody in your department who didn't have a 9-minute video. There's somebody in your department who wasn't like Sister Carol off in Buffalo, New York, who jumped the officer and said, "Get off this man! You're killing him!" Right? There are instances like this happen every single day, and America is okay and being convicted with the thing that we have 9 minutes of different angles on, right? But we don't want to tell the truth about John Crawford. We don't want to tell the truth about the walls that got more justice than Breonna. We don't want to tell the truth about all those things. So I believe that if we do it right, we can break down walls. But unfortunately, some of us are still so in love with white supremacy, and we don't know that we are. We don't believe that we are. We're so in love with white supremacy, we will run at the first chance of calm waters to something that's white.
Sydney, I want you to give us the thought process behind that to help us to see why we push that. Before you jump there, I just have to say this because it's itching my brain. It wears me out when people want to hijack a black moment and make it about everything else. You know, here we have a man that's been murdered and we have cops still trying to push the agenda of, but there are good cops. We get that, and no one's refuting that. My brother here was in the sheriff's department. You know, we get that. There are good cops out there, but let's not take away the historic moment that an African-American body was murdered. And now we have at least justice for one. And I'll just invite everyone that's out there. We get it. We get that there are good cops. Please stop hijacking our moments of saying that Black Lives Matter and that the justice that we get, far, few, and in between, is important to us beyond whether we look at a cop and they're good or bad. Policing needs to be fixed regardless. Policing needs to be fixed. But if you got a bunch, I heard this the other day, if you have a bunch of bad apples, something's wrong with the tree. And every time a cop comes forward, we call him a bad apple. There has to be a tree problem at some point. There has to be a root problem. Something's wrong somewhere other than just a bunch of bad apples keep falling. But I'm off my soapbox. Sydney, talk to us.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just jive off of and keep that analogy going a little bit. Just taking it with another bit of another flavor on it. As far as talking about couples. And for me, so I do some domestic violence treatment with fellas that have been in that kind of relationship and are trying to, basically glorified anger management, right? So we're working with brothers, and so we got a guy who wants to do individual therapy, right? Or actually, I'm sorry, he wants to do couples therapy with his partner that he's currently with, but he's also in domestic violence treatment at the same time. And the reason why he's in treatment is because of the violence he's perpetuated on his partner that he wants to do couples therapy with, right? And so it goes against the code of ethics because you can't bring a couple together where there's domestic violence occurring to do therapy. And so I think that's what the church, the American church, sometimes in our attempt to do reconciliation, this whole idea, let's do reconciliation, right? But really, it's like trying to bring a couple together that there's domestic violence occurring without addressing the domestic violence. And so
Reverend.
I mean, that's just unsafe, right? And it's unethical. Like as a clinician, that's unethical, but that's what we want to do. It's like, let's just do therapy together. Let's just talk it out. Let's just sit on the couch. But we got domestic violence occurring, and that people need to go to treatment to separate first before they do couples therapy.
And I'm so, and you know what, Sydney, I gotta say this because I'm tired of reconciliation always being on the black church. And to your point, that's like looking at the woman and saying, hey, even though he has abused you it's on you to get it right with him, because you have to take the high road to get him back into a good relationship with you. No one would tell that woman that. Nobody would tell her that. But yet, Dr. Radcliffe, that's what I'm always hearing, is that the black church, we have to follow the Bible and we have to come up and be inclusive with them. And I'm like, but until, and I think you said it, Ender, until you get on Twitter, until you get on Facebook, until you call me, and until you admit and repent and all those things, I don't know that we can just drink communion glasses over all the issue that's between us and just say, let's forget about it. When the Bible talks about how many times should I forgive my brother, you got to ask for forgiveness to get it. I don't know that there's forgiveness in a space where there's been no change or no conscious acknowledgement of the wrong. But I mean that your analogies tonight, brothers, are on point. Listen. I'm gonna run down this hallway in a second.
Or better yet, I think we've confused forgiveness with re-victimization. That I can forgive you, but I don't have to stay in the house with you if you're knocking me upside my head. I can walk away and do my own work, and I might forgive you, but I'm gonna forgive you from a safe distance.
Listen, right? Safe distance. And can we talk about this? Safe emotionally, safe physically, safe mentally, safe financially. And I don't know that and you all tell me, I don't know that we've seen that America can put us in a safe place. Radcliffe, you said it. We live in California. We're not in the deep South, but we live in California, and we're still in this ocean. We're still in this ocean in Los Angeles, one of the melting pots of the world, and we're still in this ocean. I remember I had a belt the other day, and part of the belt, we'll call it broke or messed up or whatever the case may be. And so I went to the store, and my thought was, I hope, because let me tell the whole story. I bought the belt at an outlet, but I took it to the regular store. And when I walked into the regular store, my mind was, I hope they don't think that I just stole this from somewhere or took it from somewhere because I don't have my receipt. I was ready for them to drill me on, where's your receipt? When did you buy it? Where did you get it from? And all those sorts of things. That's where my mindset was going in, because I'm in the ocean. When I go into a church that's not predominantly black, when I go into a all white church, I'm in that ocean. I'm thinking, what are they thinking about me? When I'm walking down the street, I'm wondering how people are afraid of me. And, it's sometimes those mindsets that get us to do what Dante did, where let me run for my life. I don't know why the young man was getting back in the car, but if I'm looking at all the tapes, as long as I stay with y'all, I got a better chance of living if I run than I do by standing here and letting you handle me. Because down the street, you all you killed George Floyd on the ground. So I mean, you think about all these things, and I don't know that white America realizes what we suffer through. And it wasn't our ancestors. It's still in our psyche because they still perpetrate or push the agenda of their ancestors. But Dwight.
I agree. I have no disagreement with anything you said. I just want to poke a hole in this ancient myth. We keep acting like Boston schools didn't wait until the 70s to desegregate. Oh, it's quiet. We keep acting like some of us that got family that live in Baldwin Hills don't pull out the old deed somewhere and it still got racially restrictive covenants in it that say no Negroes, Jews, or any other undesirables are allowed to live here. We still act like Ladera Heights was not built for white urban professionals.
Talk to us.
So sometimes when we have these conversations, man, we were talking to our church in Bible study tonight. We got grandmothers. I'm looking at some of the people online right now. Some of us got mothers and grandmothers that picked cotton. I ain't going back to the 1600s. Some of us got mothers and grandmothers right now that picked cotton. Most of us, I know where some of y'all live. We live in places our grandparents couldn't live. Not back in the 1800s. So we gotta dispel this myth, man, that racism and all that stuff was so long ago.
Man, you bring up a great point. I was talking to Tanisha the other night and I said, okay, I was born in 78. You talking about 10 years, right? 10 years after was Dr. King in 68? Am I getting that correct? Okay. So I was born only 10 years after that happened. 10 years. So we're not that far from it. And if I got my math wrong on his death date, somebody can look that up. Still, we're talking about 10 to 15 years after that. If you think about slavery, we've been in slavery longer than we've been out of slavery. So we're talking about a few decades here, disconnected from these moments. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas, where I saw the school, and it was amazing to think, like, just a few decades ago, these kids were kept from walking into this school. And so you're right, we're not that far from these moments, and it seems like because we're one or two generations away, that everybody wants us to be so forgiving and forgetful. I don't know that there's anything to forget when you're talking about 2 generations ago, if that, 1 generation ago, our parents were dealing with the same stuff we were dealing with in a world that was even more verbose legally about these matters. So I mean, man, phenomenal point, because it's a myth. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sydney, I think you had something to say.
No, I was just reflecting on that when we talk about post-traumatic stress, like I think you mentioned earlier, but that P really doesn't stand for post, right? I mean, it really, we should maybe switch it to like present traumatic stress, because I mean, even right here in Minnesota, right, we had George Floyd in May, and then in the middle of the trial, so we're still processing that, and then we have Daunte Wright. So it's not, I mean, it's like, and maybe present, it's like persistent is maybe the best P, because it's like, we can't get over one thing, and it's just different manifestations of systemic oppression and racism, and it really has never gone away. So I think a lot of times people do say, it's that kind of sentiment of why can't they just get over it? We talk about the legacy of slavery, that was 400 years ago, but it really wasn't 400 years ago. And that's scary that you brought up King in 68, because I'm like, oh shoot, I was born 15 years after, and I'm probably the youngest person on the call, but 15 years, like, that's nothing.
No.
Wow.
No, it's nothing. And
when I was
Bishop
born
Prince
in 74, Boston
74.
schools were still segregated.
There you go. There you go. If you think about and I just saw the America versus the Klan, and it was mind blowing. That's 83. That was 1983. I mean, if you look at those videos, you're thinking this has to be the 50s.
When I was born.
This has to be the 60s. This has to be the 40s. You're talking about 83. The United Klan of America decided, because a black man was in a mistrial for killing a cop, let's go find an innocent black person to kill. They admitted it on the stand that they did this, and this is in the 80s. So this is, I think, the probably the last known recorded lynching. But that was 83. We were all here by then, and we're not ancient, we're not old.
85.
I mean, so just the
85.
reality. It was in 85.
No, I was
You was
born
born
in
in 85. Okay. All right. Well, you weren't here yet. But the reality of this, I just want to give a shout out to Bishop Prince Bryant Sr., one of our general board members who mentioned, he said he used to pick cotton. I mean, that we're talking about someone who is with us. We're not talking about a descendant relative. We're talking about someone who is with us. And God bless you, Bishop, who said he used to pick cotton and he's in Texas. It just shows how close we are to these moments. And just like wealth is transferred, hurt is transferred, fear is transferred, insecurities are transferred. And the stories that our grandparents and great-grandparents and parents told us challenge us to deal with some of those same issues and concerns that confront us in America. I'll never forget in Orange County in 8th grade when, me and my friends were in the mall. Most of us black, and we went to a store. They had free samples, and the guy told us, you can't have any of my free samples, get out of here. Next thing we know, in the arcade, 3 huge white security guards come and snatch all the black kids out, take us all outside, call us N-word, put us up against the wall, told us we could never come here again, and literally kicked us out the mall. It took our black fathers to have to go up there to correct them. But the fact that young black 8th graders, boys, are being kicked out of a predominantly white mall just because we don't want you touching our stuff. And this is when I was in 8th grade. So you're talking about 30 years ago, right? The reality is this is now. That's not a story of my father's father when he was in elementary school. That's now, right? And I can go on some other stories being older, but Dwight.
Let's go 3 or 4 years ago.
Talk to us.
My youngest daughter was in middle school, and they were doing American history and got into the period of slavery. And one of her white classmates pulls up a lynching on the computer in the computer lab and asks her, "Is this your relative?"
Jesus.
And then let's talk about how the white school district in Orange County, in their punishment, wanted to make sure that they were not scarring the little white male child in punishment. Or fast forward to about the same year when my oldest daughter's best friend, one of her good friends in high school, was called the N-word. And I'll say N-word since we're on your Facebook Live, not mine. She was called the N-word, and the school didn't want to kick him out because he had a bright future.
Bro, my son,
so they insisted, and this is going back to
my son, Ryan Davidson II. I was in Atlanta and got a phone call because he's in the office for getting into a fight. They tell me about his fight. They tell me everything he did. And I said, well, what happened? What did the other kid do? They forgot to tell me that he called my son a nigger. And my son wasn't going to stand for it. They forgot to tell me that part and decided to move on. They told my daughter she not need to apply to a UC, that she needs to go to a JC and don't worry about the UC system. So, I mean, these are the things that are happening right now, you know, and those are small compared to somebody losing their life on the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota. But, and I think, you know, Trey, I want you to speak, but brothers, we're all on the same page. This is what's going on now. This is the frustration. This is the fire. This is the anger. I want to leave this constructive. I want to leave this talk with some constructive things moving forward. I know we said we need to keep fighting. We need to stand. We don't need to stop. Talk to the people that are on here. We got about 30 people that are on here. Give us some practical things that they should be doing, not things that seem pie in the sky, but some practical things that they should be doing in this moment, whether at home, whether in their ministries, whether in their communities, within the political sector, that they can walk away with and say, yeah, I if anything, I can definitely do that to help move us forward. Let me get Trey first because he had a statement. I'm gonna go first. And then I'm gonna get back to you all after he's done.
What I do want to say before, I know that I don't want to minimalize the extreme trauma that we and our children have faced. I think a lot of times what happens is people like over the summer when the cops shot at me with beanbags while we were singing my fraternity hymn. I mean, if you've ever heard a fraternity hymn, they're the same. They're slow and old and boring, and the cops shot at us with beanbags during that time. And they told us, well, you're okay because less than 100 feet from where we were, less than when that happened, but less than a football field from where we were standing, someone was killed that same night by Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. And because we weren't killed, they told us essentially, hey, dude, it ain't that bad. And I think we can't keep our voices down on these microaggressions that turn into actual aggressions, because the dehumanization of Black people is what allows people to kill us. And if we keep quiet about these little things, it begins to build up and it becomes these larger things. So we have to use our voice. So what can we walk away from here constructively? Every woman or man of God that is going to mount the sacred desk on this Sunday has to talk about it. If you don't have the tools to talk about justice issues, if you don't have that vocabulary, use some time maybe during your Sunday school, during your Bible study, to bring in a Dwayne Ratcliffe or bring in somebody who really can speak from a justice lens. Our folk do not want to come to church because that's a sacred place for us, and we're opening up the deepest recesses of our soul. We need to hear what the Word of God says about our right now. So every woman or man of God that's going to mount the sacred desk, you need to say something about this moment. You need to say something and keep saying something. I would say also from another level, from a micro level, what we all should do is figure out what ways we're going to work towards justice. I'm a native of Memphis. When I got older, I learned that Martin Luther King was killed in Memphis. I remember asking my grandmother, I said, "Mom, what did you do the day Dr. King got killed?" She said, "I watched TV. I cried." I said, "What'd you do the next day?" "I had to go to work, son." I said, "Well, Mom, Martin King was killed." Said, "Baby, I had to go to work." And grandmother was a single parent with 9 children. And right at this time, she was raising 4 of my uncle's kids who he was in prison. So with 13, well, I mean, not all of them went home, but all these children she was responsible for, she didn't have the luxury of going downtown and demonstrating that day. She had to go to work, but in her own way, by raising her children with an awareness of who they are, in her own way of making sure that we know the stories of our past. In her own way, she was able to make a difference. And so everybody is not going to be a Bree Newsom and be able to climb a flagpole and smash down a Confederate a monument, really, to white supremacy and to anti-black race, anti-black hate, and be able to do that. Everybody's not going to be a Patrice Cullors. Everybody's not going to be a Mika Mallory. Everybody's not going to have the privilege of doing that kind of leadership. But within your sphere of influence, everybody has to do something. Not everybody can run. Not everybody can fly. If you got to crawl, everybody has to make a difference.
Love it. Love it. Dwight, you said you wanted to go first or last?
Yeah. I was just going to go. I figured, and I was right. Ender and Fry are more important things to say than I do. So I think, man, for me, I think 2 things I would suggest, and I would love to. I'll let these other brothers unpack the fact that it has been proven medically and psychologically that trauma is generational, that we carry in our bodies, in our DNA, trauma, generational trauma. So I'll let the smart people unpack that. But the 2 things that I think all of us need to be doing is, unfortunately, it's still a sad truth that if you want to hide something from Black people, you put it in a book. So we need to read. I'm not mad at you for reading your Bible and keeping up with your daily bread and doing your devotions, all of that. But in addition to that, you need to be reading other things also that inform you, that can help you unpack and understand what's happening in the world that we live in. And then the second piece is make sure that we speak up, because I'm telling you right now, we've got to be aware of the danger of the alternative narrative that's about to pop off. And the alternative narrative is, see, the system works. When somebody does wrong, they're arrested, and see, the system works. So we need to be educated to be able to speak back that actually the system failed, and that the governor and the attorney general had to step in.
Yeah.
And that had they not stepped in, there wouldn't even be a trial, let alone a conviction. So
Yeah.
Just being more mindful that, especially specifically as Black Christians, we cannot be so allergic to literature that don't have King James written on the cover of it. That we've got to open ourselves up to other types of literature that can help us to form our minds, to be people that are aware and that can speak into situations. I'm done.
Man.
That's it.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. Sydney.
Yeah, no, I really can't add too much to what's already been said. I mean, I appreciate each of you brothers for just sharing and just for the opportunity to have dialogue like this. I mean, I think that's one thing that, I mean, if we're talking about just real practical, it's like just brothers just chopping it up and just really being able to process, I mean, in a healthy way. And I mean, it's a cliche, but somebody said, what you can put to words, you can put to rest. And a lot of some of the turmoil is things that we just haven't been able to talk about. And obviously we don't always have safe places to do that. And I think that's where we really need to network and connect with like-minded folks that we can have these conversations. Because I mean, there's brilliance. I mean, it's just amazing. I mean, despite all of we talk about Black trauma, but there's so much more to our story than just our trauma too. And so we have, such brilliant minds, I mean, in the Black community. And so I believe that there's just a lot of untapped potential that we still have yet to get to. I mean, I think everybody has a role in the fight. Some people are going to be on the front line. Some people are going to be pushing policy change. For me, I might be, sometimes you do have to do the education for the oppressor. I mean, some of us have to kind of help them come along and educate, and educate folks. But I mean, everybody has a different role in the process. But I think if we working together, we're gonna make some progress.
I had to make a decision today, and all of that was phenomenal. I hope people watching got some nuggets they can get. And I'll end it with this. I had to make a decision today. There was a verdict rally that was set up that clergy were asked to go to. So when the rally drops, we would be there ready to, be help for our people. I had to make a decision: go there or be home with my kids. And I chose my babies. And I'm glad I did in that moment, because there was a need that my son had that I wasn't aware of, that we had to address and handle in that moment to help him through that moment and help him heal through that moment. I think one of the biggest things we can do is to make sure that as prolific, as provocative, as politically out front we want to be, to make sure you're doing that at home first. To march down the halls of city halls and do protests and carry signs. If the children and the people that God's trusted you in your house are not gleaning from your passion and your fire and your education, I'm sorry, my brother. I'm sorry, my sister. You missed it. I would hate, and I said this once. I was at a youth event, and we were there all week. And it came time that all the youth leaders wanted to hang out, and they said, hang out. I said, no, I got to go be with my sons when Ryan was little. And they said, well, can't he stay with mom? I said, I'm not. There's no way in the world I'm gonna spend all week with these kids I don't know, and then neglect my son, who is actually my flesh and blood. So I'm sorry, y'all can go hang out. I need to be with my son. And I think that's what sometimes we have to take that stance, where when it comes time, do I go heal the world or do I heal my world? Sometimes you got to be selfish and say, you know what, I have to make sure that when my children leave the house, they're better than they were yesterday. And if we can each do that in our own house, we can change the world one child, two child, three children at a time. And balance that with being healing and help to the rest of the world, because we're all spiritual leaders. But I think that's so important that everything we're saying started at home. Do it right there with the people that are in your care. And that's a great place that you can start to cause some of that change to take place. I love this, Dr. Radcliffe. My takeaway, what we can put to words, we can put to rest. I love it. That was Sidney Fry. What we can put to words, we can put to rest. And that's it, huh? You can't even put your hat on right anymore.
That's it. I'm done. I'm done. I'm ready to go now.
Listen. Man, this is powerful, and again, shout out to our wives for being on, and some of our parents are on there, and some spiritual leaders and our friends and family. I just wanted to get my brothers together tonight. We were all together in the summer several times as all of this unfolded in, I believe, was it May? When all this started to unfold, we were online a few times. We were in marches together. We were doing protests. We would talk before and after protests. So I thought it was important that we get together now that we're at this kind of moment of vindication for George Floyd, to kind of do a temperature check to see where are we. What did we move forward? And help me if I'm wrong. I feel like we're saying, I don't know that we moved forward, but we certainly got a point in the right direction. And there's still a whole lot that needs to happen, a whole lot that we need to do, a lot of things that still need to be addressed and resolved. This was a great moment, but you brought up a great point, Dwight. We have to be ready for them to try and change this and make it something else. We have to be ready for that. I was thinking, I said, I hope they don't take this into, we gave y'all one. We gave y'all George Floyd, relax. I'm hoping that's not what this becomes, because that's not, that, I don't even know how to put that into words. Just don't do that. Right.
Right.
But
Ryan,
yeah.
can I, so 2 seconds. I really, as someone who has no problem voicing frustration with the church, Bishop Bryant being on tonight, and I know he's still commenting right now. I'm not going to cry this evening. I cried enough today, but that touches my heart as a preacher who feels he has a prophetic call, not to raise offering, but to raise consciousness and bring the voice of God into the earth. To have one of the leaders of our denomination to be on tonight, I'm not gonna cry. That means so much. Bishop Bryant, I appreciate you. I'm gonna text Prince and tell you your son Prince second, but man, I can't express how monumental that is and how much Maxine Waters said it earlier today, said the young folk were out here and they're waiting for the elders. We need our elders in this fight with us. We need to look up to their wisdom. We need to glean from their wisdom. We need them to tell us to shut up. We need all of that. All of that. I'm done.
I love it. And again, shout out to our general board member, Bishop Prince Bryant, for, I know it's, if it's 9:30 over here, it's about 11:30 over there. So just thank God for him and hanging with the young men tonight. That's huge. That's huge. Hanging with the young preachers tonight. And so we appreciate that. And everyone that's been with us hanging tonight, we just love and appreciate you. I hope you got something out of this discussion, that you're going to take your consciousness further, that you're going to do some of the things that we said. You're going to make yourself more aware. You're going to dig into some reading. Please do me a favor. Do not spread social media news unless you've researched it for yourself. Take time to understand what's happening before you push agendas of others that may be giving false and wrong information. So let's hold each other accountable there. I love you all. My brothers, thank you all for hanging with me tonight. I look forward to the times that we've talked. We've talked offline, online, and we get to bring one of our discussions to the forefront. So I appreciate you all. Everybody, we may see you again soon. I don't know. We may come together and want to wrap some more. But thank y'all for hanging with us tonight. Have a good night. We'll see y'all.